This week on the Documentary Review Podcast, Jonathan and I give up all of our privacy and realize that surely all the episodes we've released so far are in an NSA database somewhere as we discuss the 2013 documentary Terms and Conditions May Apply. Welcome to the podcast. I'm PT.
I'm Jonathan. Glad you guys can join us.
Indeed, welcome. Hey, so just gonna throw it out there. Usually wait to the end to say something like this, but we're up on a new podcast feed now, so now's the time where we need the force of energy of all the listeners behind us to go review us on iTunes, and that would really help boost us. Since we're on this new feed, we can get in the new podcast area again, so that'd be great. Go review us on iTunes.
That would be fantastic. If you got a second to kill and you're like, man, what am I going to do with my time?
Yeah.
Review us on iTunes. There's your answer. But a good review.
Yeah, if you're like under 3 stars, you can still review us. But I think the website is Yahoo.com. I don't remember what the website is, but don't go to iTunes. So let's go.
All right. Going good.
Good.
Going good. Beautiful weather out here in Colorado. We had a little snowstorm and followed up by, I think it's going to hit 70 next week. So, yay.
Nice. Good deal.
Yeah. How about you? How's life treating you?
Good. And we had similar type weather conditions. We had snow day today because it snowed, but this weekend's supposed to be warm again. So good times.
Nice.
We're always amazed. You can tell we're Midwestern people. We're always amazed when like the snow melts after it's like, after it goes. Like we're used to with the snows, like you don't see the ground again until
right,
or whatever. But now it's like a couple days later, we're good.
Sweet.
Apparently that's how it is in most lands, except the crazy tundra we grew up.
Right, that's right. Good old Minnesota, you can just get one snowfall a year that just gradually builds bigger and bigger and bigger for 9 months.
Well, speaking of things that spin out of control wildly, tell us about Terms and Conditions, Jonathan.
Sure. This is a documentary film that kind of examines what we give up when we use free services such as Google, Facebook, free online services. And it takes a look into that button you click as quick as you can to get your stuff called accept, and kind of goes over the ramifications of the effects of those terms and conditions on the general public. What can be the downsides to it. It's certainly a biased look at that world, and whether or not it's truly an invasion of privacy, and if so, what does that mean for the average consumer? But again, a very biased documentary that it's a bad thing and they don't like it. Nice. So that's kind of a terms and condition.
All right.
May apply.
Well, let's get to your biased opinion. Did you give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down on this one?
Boy, I'm gonna go with a thumbs down on this one. It would be like a neutral for me. I think I don't think I quite want to commit to thumbs down, but I don't want to give it a thumbs up. So that's where I'm at on this one. Flatliner.
A flatliner. I love it. Yeah, I'm gonna go with thumbs down as well. I was kind of disappointed in this documentary in that, we've seen the formula, Jonathan. We've seen many we've seen this documentary before, just on very many different topics, and whether it's your misrepresentation or your inequality for all, or we've seen many versions of this kind of documentary. And what I like about this kind of documentary is it's a little bit like a horror movie. They always scare you a little bit, and I kind of like to be scared in that way. Like, I don't know why, but I just feel like a little bit unsettled about what's going on in society, and I feel like this documentary failed in that attempt. I was very unmoved by their, I expected there to be much more crazy stuff that they pointed out in the terms and conditions, and I just didn't feel like I was very surprised or
no
anything by what was brought up, I guess.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, if you go and watch An Inconvenient Truth, you're like, oh my God, anything. Yeah, we got to do something. This is horrible. Like, there's a bunch of bad stuff. And most of them are like that. Most of your really biased documentaries are like that. But you're right. This one, I was kind of like, I guess that's not good. I mean, it really Yeah, and in fact, even by the time they got done, I was like, well, I still really think it's probably worth it to just hit the accept button.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Kept waiting for more. I don't know. And yeah. What was I was going to say something there, but yeah. Yeah. I guess like to your point earlier about like the free services and that like kind of being the price we pay for the free services. Like, I think I'm good with with that. Like, rather than pay $500 a year for Facebook or $500 a year for Google or whatever. Like yeah, they take my information and they market it to advertisers. Like, that's the price I paid. I guess I'm okay with that, you know?
Right, yeah, and then like their big argument, and here was where it went from, it totally fizzled out to me, was they went through and they, the NSA, I mean, I guess there you go, you got your NSA, CIA, whatever intelligence gathering organizations that do kind of sift through. And I mean, here's the thing, that what the reason it doesn't really scare me, or I don't feel like that it's that bad of a invasion of privacy, is because if, I mean, they can't actually sift through it. You know what I mean? Like, if they had someone that was actually looking at Facebook pages and reading the post, and listening to telephone calls, and listening to what they were actually saying and reading emails, well then 50% of the people in America would be working for the NSA, because you would
Right.
need 50% of the people working full time around the clock to try and keep up with all that information. I mean, that's what it would take to actually. So we would have to have at least 175 million people working for the NSA 24 hours a day, just try and keep up with everybody else. Obviously, that's not the case. In the end of it, it's just an algorithm that's going to like search for certain keywords or whatever. And there's where you got to like hesitate, because I mean that is a slippery slope and all that. But the point in the documentary where I was like, it's not so bad, was they did have a couple of instances of people doing or saying things online that were really innocent, but all of a sudden the police like knocked on their door.
Right.
And that's the bad part. But the good part, the part where it wasn't that scary, is that all those circumstances ended with them saying like, whoops. I mean, the
Right.
police didn't like take them and put them into custody and like lock them away for 15 years. They broke down the door and they were like, oh, that was just a Facebook post. Yeah, sorry. And if that's the case, but the alternative is they bust down the door and they're like, whoa, wow, we just stopped a major terrorist attack.
Right.
Uh, yeah, that, I can live with that, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's definitely was on my list of points to bring up too. Is like for instance, that comedian guy who like made the post and then the police came. Like, yeah, that was like wildly inconvenient for him, but like that's as far as it went. It was just like a big inconvenience to have the police come and like question him for an hour or whatever. Not like at the end of the day, like it's not wasn't that big a deal compared with you know.
Right. He never got arrested or booked. He doesn't have anything on his record. He didn't have to spend a day in jail. He didn't have to hire an attorney. And same with like, they brought up that guy that for the Google searches, there was a writer. And
Mhm.
yeah, he wrote, he searched all kinds of crazy stuff because he was working for a crime show, and it was like, how to murder my wife and like pictures of dead people and whatever, because he's, gathering information to write a story. But nobody ever came and like bothered him about it. But had they come and bothered him about it, they would have been like, oh, you're a writer. Oh, yep, there's your wife with your baby, and everybody's happy and safe, and you're a
Right.
writer. Sorry, and they would have left. But the alternative is they could have, knocked on the door, and he has like, 5 bodies stored in his freezer, and then you'd be like, wow, I'm glad we came check this out.
Right. Yeah, yeah, that was actually the one thing that I'd say that touched home a little bit because there is some crazy stuff I've like Googled for my writing. Like when I had one novel where someone got shot in the head, and my editor was like, "Dude, this doesn't feel real. You got to like research like what actually happens when someone gets shot in the head a little bit more." So like I did some pretty in depth like research and like looked at some really gross pictures and stuff of like what happens when people get shot in the head, and it made me a little bit uncomfortable for a minute. But then I was like, yeah, like let's say someone did get shot in the head and I got accused of that, and they used that as evidence. Pretty sure I could just bring up that book and be like, yeah, look at this scene where that this is like literally what I was researching. So,
Right,
yeah,
right, and
I'm not that scared of that.
right, exactly, and you could, and then like, I mean, the other, like the reason I think they didn't bust down that guy's door either, is you can. There's so many people looking at so many weird things on the internet that you gotta, again, I'm sure it's an algorithm, but you got to throw out a very specific set of things where it's like, it's not just looking up dead bodies or whatever. I'm sure it would be like, how do I make bombs, and how do I, like there's a very certain sequence of things that you'd write the algorithm to kind of look for. And yeah,
Right.
I mean,
And like what you're saying about there's not enough people. I'm sure probably how it works. They didn't really get into it, but I assume how it works in the NSA is like the algorithms find people, and then probably that's when the actual workers step in and like sift through the stuff that the algorithms have found to say like, okay, what of this
right,
is real,
right.
what was not.
Yeah, I would assume that that's kind of how it goes too, is that you're like, oh, okay, and then then you can start looking at other stuff, like, okay, well, this sequence came up, let's hack into his emails or whatever they do. Who knows what the NSA is out there doing? But apparently, certainly invading our privacy. I guess I don't know.
Wildly invading your privacy.
Right.
Like the whole thing is that, and I do feel kind of like weird about it because, um, like on an intellectual level, I do kind of agree that that's like a bad thing, and like I do kind of get where the people are coming from who are very concerned about it, and I don't like fault those people. Like I understand their logic, and I'm like, but I don't know why. But for some reason, like this is just an issue that like does not like touch me like emotionally or whatever at all. I'm just like, oh, all right. Like I don't
Right.
know where the disconnect is for me, but I'm just like just not too worried about it for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Me too. And then I I feel a little bit for it on certainly your telephone calls, your emails, and even Google searches. Like in those areas, I'm like, yeah, because I mean that's all stuff you're doing essentially privately. You know what I mean? Like when even if you're Googling something, that's just you in your house and you're looking up how do you get bubble gum out of somebody's hair.
Right.
That's just something that is in your private life and you have no intention of sharing it, and things like that. But this movie focuses a lot on Facebook too. And
Mm.
I have zero concern for people's privacy on Facebook. Like if you want to go use you know, somebody put a crap load of time and energy into making Facebook, and a ton of money too. I mean, they got an office, they got tons of servers, they got code writers, they got all kinds. They put a ton of money into making Facebook. They get, and you don't have to use it. I mean, Facebook's just a stupid thing. You could say screw Facebook and never use Facebook. It doesn't
Right.
matter. It's completely irrelevant. So if you want to use this free service and somebody wants to take your information and you're aware of it, I mean, no one is shocked when you're like, guess what? Facebook tracks your information. That doesn't. No one's
Right.
like, oh my, no one does that. We all know it. We're all aware, and that's the price you pay for using it. And it's a dumb service anyway. If you want to use a dumb service and you don't,
Right.
and you're signed up to their terms. That's what you have to do if you're going to use their super cool free service.
Right.
So I have zero concern for people on Facebook getting their privacy violated.
Right. Yeah, and I totally agree with that. And I think like for a long time, like Facebook was pretty big before they started like figuring out how to monetize themselves well. Like you know, they were starting to get big, and they're like had this huge user base, and they're like basically, what do we do with this kind of thing? And they found a way to monetize it.
Right. Yeah. Out of a tremendous risk. I mean,
Right.
they put a lot of time and effort into it, being like, we're going to make money on this somehow.
Right.
And then eventually they were like, oh, yeah, we can make money. As it turns out, everyone on planet Earth just gave us all their information for free.
Mm-hmm.
And we can actually turn around and sell that knowledge. So, yeah. And again, I mean, I guess now you could say if you got off Facebook, they would still retain that knowledge, but whatever. And it has prevented some serious crimes. I mean, there was a terrorist playing attack in New York in Colorado. I just happened to know because it was a local story. He was living actually in the town that I live in. And he basically posted on Facebook, I'm going to go blow up New York or whatever, or drop my bomb or do my suicide bombing in New York. And they were like, oh, well, when they knocked on his door, it wasn't some comedian who, quoted Fight Club. They were like, oh, wow, this guy's got a bunch of bombs and shit. Let's stop that.
Right. Yes. And I feel like too that like people are people like I feel like all the stories that they had in this were from a few years ago. Like I think people are definitely getting smarter about like, oh, like you can't say Bob at a plate and stuff like that. You know, you can't post jokes about killing politicians and stuff like that on Facebook. Like I think people know that now, and like yeah, it's just something that we adapt to. I don't know.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I mean, like, again, this is where I didn't want to give this like a 0 or like a negative rating. It went for the neutral instead. So like I disagree with a lot of it. And I honestly, I'm not like a big personal privacy thing. And like, I mean, like I said, if you really, really don't want anyone to know about your whatever, then don't use those services. I mean, I don't use Facebook. Nobody knows anything about me on Facebook because I don't have a Facebook account. I use Facebook. I'm aware of it, and then I don't like not use it so people don't find out about me. I just whatever. It doesn't interest me. But anyway, I guess I'm just not ultra concerned. But after watching this, I did really start to at least like there were a couple points and key elements in this where I was like, we really do need to like monitor this as a society. Like it is a slippery slope and it can go too far. So it did make me a little more aware, a little more concerned than I was prior to watching this. That like,
yeah, me too. And I think the way this documentary could have been a lot more effective for me, and I guess they would have changed the title of it because it really doesn't. I don't think it have anything to do with terms and conditions, but it was more like the stuff like oh, your the health insurance company is going to find out that you're speeding or that you're drinking a lot of alcohol, like that kind of stuff, or like your insurance company is finding out that you're not driving safely because of the GPS on your phone. That kind of stuff like is more it weirds me out more than like someone checking my Facebook.
Yeah, what do you think about that? Because at first when they said that, when they were like, oh yeah, like if your insurance company goes and sees that you're like going all like whatever, ordering wine of the month club with 12 bottles of wine and you're getting that every other week, you know what I mean? Like
right.
Maybe they jack up your insurance rates. It's sure, seems you could make the logical jump there that, yeah, that person's probably an alcoholic or whatever, but,
right.
Which again, may or may not be the case, but I mean, like part of me was like, well, that's kind of fair game. Like, I mean, like the flip side of it is you could demand better rates if they had access to everyone's stuff. You could be like, look at my GPS thing. I don't speed. I don't get into car accidents and I don't speed. I want better rates.
Right.
And I think somebody could probably design a company around that. The safe driver, company be like, if we monitor your cell phone, you can give us access to your cell phone so we can see your GPS on your phone and monitor how you drive. And if you stay within the speed limits and are a safe, good driver, then we give you killer rates. I mean, I don't know that it's a horrible thing. I guess maybe the big difference is you should have to get permission for it, but
right. Or yeah, that's I guess where I'm at with it is that, or not even permission, but just like let you know that they're doing it or whatever,
Yeah.
One example of this that I've thought about before, but this definitely made me think of was so my like I know a lot of like big health insurance companies, including the one that I happen to be get my insurance through, has all these programs where you can earn money. Like they'll like literally just send you money. And so I always do these, and my wife always does these. But I've always been like, man, they're not giving us money for nothing. They want this data that we're giving them. And it's stuff like, hey, if you go get your blood drawn and get a biometric screening or whatever, we will give you $200. Or if you go and if you like join this program where you like track what you're eating for, however long, we'll give you X number of dollars. So like I guess like the best possible optimistic outlook of that is there's like, these are things that will help you be more healthy and cost them less money in the long run. But I'm always afraid like that someday I'm going to get some illness and they're going to like pull out that data and be like, oh yeah, look at this where you submitted this one thing on that blood draw or whatever, and so it was pre-existing or whatever, somehow that they're going to find a way to use that data against me. So I don't know, but I don't know. it just made me think of that. I've always wondered, like, what's it's really worth?
What's the catch?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean
why
that's
are they giving me $500 to do this dumb stuff?
that was very interesting. I mean, like my thought when you as soon as you said it was that you know, yeah, you're probably right that they're just trying to do preventive medicine to save money in the long run. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's just I mean insurance companies are some
Right, the
shady
worst.
tykes. They are the worst. So it wouldn't shock me if they were like, ah, oh, you know how on that food thing you said you don't eat whatever? Oh, so it turns out that you do eat that. And now you have cancer, so we're not going to pay for it. Boom.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, I've thought about it before, like a couple times. I've like fudged my weight a little bit on the thing, and like, oh man, what if they find out about this? That's the excuse to not assure me.
Interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know. Was there anything else in the documentary that like that did legitimately make you like uh, wonder a little bit, or make you be like, yeah, this is something where we should be a little concerned?
Yeah, I mean, like, again, it wasn't like the problem was this was essentially old information where they,
Right.
they went over like the NSA and how much, ridiculous data they gather and all that. And of course, like, I've already seen Citizen 4 and everybody's already talked about all that stuff and Stone came out and blah, blah. And like, oh, okay, well, I mean, they really have, yeah, like, I guess I already knew, yeah, they can pretty much monitor anything we're doing digitally. Um, but it, this actually lessened that for me, like this documentary, that they're not just going around locking up people. They might be occasionally doing stupid, things where they're like, yeah, that was a waste of everybody's time and we inconvenienced somebody. But that's where it ended. And this documentary would have like, I think, infuriated me and everyone else. They would have been like, and then that guy had to spend 3 weeks in jail and get an
Right.
attorney, and like then I would have been like, whoa, we got to put a stop to this. But the fact that we still have the kind of like, rational thinking that we can, they can knock on somebody's door, and like that line from Fight Club is like a super scary line in modern society.
Oh yeah, sure.
You're going to go into an office building, and I think he said he was going to go to Apple Store or whatever. And
Right.
I assume like they didn't show his exact tweet, but anybody that hasn't seen the documentary, the line from Fight Club where Edward Norton's like, he gets asked about leaving a paper on the copy machine. He's like, whatever, gets that whole line about, oh yeah, he's going to go through the office with some kind of whatever he names off the AR or blah blah blah
All right.
automatic rifle, and it's going to basically go kill everybody, or he just left drunk on the copy machine. And he just did that same quote, but for Apple. But if you didn't know Fight Club, you'd be like, oh my god, that's horrific, and that can
Right.
actually happen. That happens now. So I mean,
Right.
the fact that somebody like called that in, or yeah, most likely called it in or whatever, just saying like, yeah, this guy's going to go kill everybody at the Apple Store, and they read that quote, yeah,
Right.
seemed legitimate. So
Yeah, and I think you're right that maybe we're not giving it as fair of a shake because this since 2013 has definitely been a big topic in the news and other places. So I think that's a fair point. Um,
yeah.
the one thing though, at the like where it really let me down was at the end, kind of towards the end when they were like, um, I was still ready to believe when they went around to those experts and they're like, all right, well, what would you say to someone who says like, who cares that they're collecting all this data? No one had like a good answer to that. The one guy was like, oh, people who say that they don't have anything to hide, like they're just
Yeah,
lying. Like nobody had a good. I was like, I'm pretty sure I don't really have anything that.
yeah, I can almost guarantee that if like all our information was public, everyone would be like, huh. Yeah, that was so boring to read.
Right.
And I mean, essentially everyone's information is public. Like, I mean, people like, again, I'm not a Facebooker, but I'm aware of Facebook and I've seen Facebook, and people put all their stuff on there, all their stuff, like
Sure.
stuff that you're like, wow, that seems like you should keep that private. But
Right.
like, and the stupid stuff. I mean, like, I've looked at my wife's Facebook page, and there's so many pictures of like things people are eating that I'm just like, wow, who cares? Who cares about any
Right.
of this? I think that's what they would be about almost everyone. Like people that are like, oh yeah, who cares if they know everything about me? Because really, who cares? Nothing. Nobody's doing anything nefarious.
Right.
Nobody's committing crimes for the most part. Most people aren't, and just living your life. Taking care of your kids, doing work. It's pretty much everybody's story.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So yeah, there was no reason that like anyone should really care unless you're committing a crime or about to commit a crime. Then you should probably care about posting your information publicly.
Right. Like I can see caring on like and maybe this is where my emotional disconnect comes. Like I can see caring on a macro level, like some of those like big experts who are like, yeah, this is like a slippery slope for society. Like I can see that point, but like for me personally, my information out there, I'm like, whatever. But I could see them being like, yeah, the government is like, this is one way that our rights are kind of being eroded. Like, yeah, I guess that's an area for concern.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. That is an area for concern. Um, you know, but again, it's something you got to really watch closely because one, it's modern era. I mean, there is all this information out there, and governments can use it for good or bad reasons. I mean, like I honestly like I think everybody jumps on board and they're like, yeah, you know what? If it prevents another 9/11, we're all willing to give up a little something. I mean, obviously, like the big thing that we all have to really watch for is if we're like, it's one thing to have the Secret Service knock on your door when you're like, even if it's misinterpreted statement saying like Obama better watch out for suicide bombers. If you mean it as an actual warning to the president, like that little 7-year-old did, plus the fact he was 7, it should probably like the Secret Service that they didn't really need to show up on that kid's doorstep. But anyway, you know what I mean? Like, there's if they're showing up for that kind of thing, I'm okay. As long as they're not showing up when the kid's like, Obama's a dickhead and I hate his politics.
Right.
The first time somebody knocks on somebody else's door because of that statement, that's the slope we got to watch out for. When somebody's like, if Donald Trump gets elected president and people are like, Trump's an a-hole and he is, his hair is ugly, and then all of a sudden you have somebody knocking on their door raising their taxes. That's the slope you got to watch out for.
Right. They don't have to search too hard for that stuff. They can look it right on my right on my Facebook feed. Yeah, totally. What did you think of like because like it was clear that their big like stunt at the end, and I don't think like this was another reason that it was like, yeah, all right, this didn't really turn out. I don't think the way they hoped it was basically where they went to like kind of like surprise Mark Zuckerberg or whatever while he was just like walking to work, kind of a thing. And it was felt a little anticlimactic to me. And then they tried to like save it with a little speech or whatever. But I don't know. What did you think of that whole scene?
Yeah, I mean that made them look like idiots. I mean, like the documentary. I mean, they should have just left that off. Honestly, I mean, like obviously they worked really hard to like it just not that hard. I mean, they worked. I'm sure they probably worked really hard trying to go through the channels to get an interview with him through Facebook, like going through their press department and all that stuff, which didn't work. So instead, they just like Google his home address, which worked. And then they just like hung out until he walked his dog or whatever. I guess he wasn't walking his dog; he didn't have a dog, but for whatever reason, he left his house and they came over and videotaped him. One, the guy was pretty cool about it.
Right? Yeah.
I would have been a much bigger dick if I was just like leaving my front door and like some dude with a video camera and another guy. I would be like freaked out and like, and that's just me. I mean, I'm not like a billionaire that could get kidnapped. I don't know what I would have thought if I was him. So anyway, but he seemed pretty cool about it, and he did ask, turn off your cameras, and of course they did the dick move of kept the hidden camera on and turned the other camera off, right. Which they then tried to justify. They were like, well, anyway. So so that made them look like dicks to begin with, and then they talked to him, and they didn't say anything bad. It was basically like, whatever. Try and go. Stop by the office. Maybe we'll set something up. I don't know. And then they're like, he smiled. If we freeze frame at this instant, he smiles. And it's like, maybe he was just relieved because you weren't going to kidnap him and he realized that. That made me smile. Yeah, so that was horrible. They should just cut that whole thing from the documentary. They would look a lot better before that point.
Agreed. Yeah, and like I said, I guess the only thing in the documentary that really like kind of made me wonder a little bit was like that stuff they said about the whole and a safe facility being built in Utah. Like, I'd already heard about that and stuff like that. But yeah, still, that is a little bit disconcerting, I guess, on a certain level. And it was kind of a bummer that Obama didn't like keep all his campaign stuff about what he was going to do about that. But I don't know. Beyond that, I wasn't too moved by it too much.
Yeah, and one thing that disturbed me a little bit, but again, I've become numb to over the years, is like when they were, debating, how to legislate, privacy policies in terms for services, and like, because I mean, like that was kind of where it did make sense. Like they were like, it would take 180 hours for the average person to read the terms and conditions of their things they're using between apps and Google's and iTunes and all that. It's like, yeah, obviously, like consumers can't read that. You can't do that. No, it's impossible. And even if you could read it, like odds are you wouldn't really understand it, and even if you did, you wouldn't be able to do anything about it. So it's like it is something that needs to be addressed. And when they had like the congressional hearings on it, it was like a couple of senators and congressmen or whatever speaking out against it, and then like a ton of ninja lobbyists from Facebook and Google and all that eventually like dictated the legislation.
Right.
That's always disheartening, because you're like, oh well, American people, second place again.
Totally. That was like a bummer. I went to the Capitol recently, and like overall it was a really good experience, and it was really cool. But the one thing that like bummed me out a little bit was like we were in this one hallway, and like two senators like were walking past, and like our tour guy was like, get up against the wall, get up against the wall. Like you could tell there was the kind of thing where like they were gonna freaking get in trouble if they did not get us out of the way of those senators. Like the senators were walking really fast or whatever through the hallway, and they're like, yeah, quick, get against the wall kind of thing. Like they were like, our tour guy was really like cool and casual the whole time, but he like a scared look at it was the design those senators were walking fast. It's like, dude, I don't know, I guess. But
I
don't know why, that just bugged me. So yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think anything else in this that I wanted to point out. Yeah, I mean, I guess I said it before, but like that was the other thing that I was really expecting in this and didn't get, was just pull out like 3 or 4 really scary sentences in like the Apple or Google or Facebook terms of conditions, and like, I mean, the thing they really focused on was that whole prevent like whatever thing, but they didn't really pull out too much scary stuff out of the actual terms and conditions.
Right. I think that's kind of where it missed the mark, or where it really kind of convinced me like, it's not that big of an issue, is because even when you had like the opposition, you know what I mean, like the people that are looking for anything to say how horrible this is, they didn't really come up with it. They came up with those 3 or 4 examples of people getting their door knocked on, essentially, that turned out to be nothing. But those are the only examples they really were able to bring forward. And I mean, like, yeah, that is a scary thought to say, like, you basically, I mean, essentially the argument can be made that no one needs a warrant anymore. And they did circumvent that system. Instead of like, saying I need to wiretap this guy's house, instead you just go up to a corporation, you're like, we need access to your records. And they're like, okay. And then Google gives you their stuff, and Google's like, well, we already said that in our thing that you clicked accept on, that it was, if a law enforcement agency came to us and wanted to prevent a crime, we give them your shit, and they do. Right. So that is a slippery slope again. But
totally. And I think in a more skillfully made documentary, that point could have been made made scary. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, what would have been a good little thing to add to that documentary would be, here's where this could lead to.
Right.
Just going down that. I mean, you could essentially that's what makes an inconvenient truth scary. There's never like a point where they're like, well, maybe there is, I haven't watched it in a while, but like they don't really focus on this is what's happening now. They're never like, sea levels have risen 4 feet and cities are disappearing. They never say that because it's not happening, but they sure as hell say right around the corner, sea level is going to raise 20 feet and New York City is going to be underwater. And you're like, whoa, that's horrible. We can't let New York go underwater. I'm freaked out. And they could have done that here. They could have been like, Yeah, and they could, you can even draw like crazy correlations. You could be like, the SS in Russia, tracked people's postal service stuff, and then that eventually led them to, the arrest and genocide of whatever. They could have drawn some crazy correlations and really like freaked you out, but you're right, they never did. They never went there and left me
Yeah.
unafraid.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, maybe we should be praising them for their restraint, but on the other hand, man, I wouldn't be scared. That's why I watch
Right. Right. Now I'm not convinced at all about your point.
The side note, like, have you seen that episode of South Park that they like showed the little clip from where I can't remember who it is, but one of the dudes is like, oh man, dude, I didn't read the terms and conditions. And everyone else is like, oh man, you didn't read those? It's crazy.
No, I didn't see that episode, but I would like
the part they didn't show that episode that's awesome is he finds out that like in the terms and conditions, what he agreed to was being part of a human centipede, and like the Apple people like come and get him, and like yeah, we agreed to the terms and conditions. It's pretty great. And there's also a really good documentary called, I think it's called like 6 Days, which is about the making of that episode and like shows, but it's a really cool documentary that shows like how they go about like within 6 days, like from no idea for what the show's going to be whatsoever to like the complete episode being done in South Park. And that just happens to be the episode that they focus on in that documentary. But anyway, yeah. I wish they would have showed the part about the human centipede in this documentary. That would have made it better too.
Right, I would never hit accept again if they were like, one possibility is you might be part of a human centipede. That I would be like, you know what, Google's not that great. I'm out. I'm gonna go pick up a newspaper. That's how scared I
am. Nice. All right. Well, how many stars are you gonna give this documentary?
2.5.
2.5. Right. I'm in. Let's do 2.5.
All right.
I'm in for 2.5. That's bad boy. If you want to let us know your thoughts, we have a new email address. It is docreviewpod@gmail.com.
Ooh, nice.
So there you go. Email us, but more importantly, go review us on iTunes. I don't really, rather have your review. No offense. I mean, I like to speak with you and everything, but the review is essential right now. All right. You ready for the 3 documentaries this week?
Ready. Lay them on me.
All right. Our theme this week is disasters. We're going to talk about 3 major disasters. The first one is Lost Soul. This is about the making of the movie The Island of Dr. Moreau, which was like, which is like seen as one of like the biggest like disaster flop like disappointments in Hollywood history, where like everything went wrong, and it's supposed to be an interesting documentary.
Okay.
The next one is The Summit, which is about a like really big mountaineering disaster on, I believe, K9. I think it's the biggest mountaineering disaster in modern history, where a bunch of folks died. And the final one is We Cause Scenes, which is about a performance art troupe that like basically puts together crazy performances. Basically, they're like creating little disasters in public on purpose. I listened to a podcast about these guys, and they definitely do crazy stuff. Like, like they have this one guy who they party with him all night and convince him it's his birthday, and they're all his friends when they're actually have never met him before. They spend the whole night like throwing this crazy party for him, and it's pretty crazy. So there you go. That was in the podcast I listened to, at least. I don't know if it's in this documentary. But those are the 3 choices: Lost Soul, The Summit, and We Cause Scenes. Which disaster are you going with?
Ooh, man, this is a tough one. I'm gonna scratch Lost Souls because I haven't seen Dr. Moreau, so then I would have to watch that too. I don't think I have that much time. Let's see. Man, you got me pretty intrigued about the We Cause Scenes thing. Like, I'm so confused by what you just said, and like, what are these people doing, and why are they doing it? Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Let's go with We Cause Scenes.
All right, cool. The podcast, I think it was an episode of This American Life that I listened to, was awesome. I don't know. We'll see if the documentary holds up to the same level or not. So We Cause Scenes. We will be back with that next week. In the meantime, thanks for listening and or watching. I'll talk to you next time. This is PT. Keep it real.
And it's Jonathan. We'll see you next week.